in the beginning of this year, school year, I wrote a piece in the Times that said, I want my students to be more political. Now,
Hmm.
what I meant by that was I wanted them to go work for political campaigns, and I made that clear. But I didn't want them to be just studying or going to a basketball game or smoking dope. I wanted them to actually be engaging with the issues of the day. And the issues of the day include the war in Gaza. And so, even though I may disagree with the position of many students, that really isn't here nor there. As long as they stay within the time and place restrictions we have and they're nonviolent, then I think my job is to protect them and their right to voice their opinions.
Well, let's talk about those campus protests because, among other things, it's been used as an excuse by Donald Trump to cut science funding at universities, although how that will combat anti-Semitism is a mystery that remains unanswered. That students are, even beforehand, we got a lot of questions about this, that students are using commencement speeches. They're doing a switcheroo at the last minute and not delivering the speeches that they presented. You're a college president. You're used to students not exactly doing everything by the rule book. But the anti-Semitism, say for at Columbia, the Harvard protests that have triggered Trump and the administration in so many ways. We talk about Vietnam and the protests going on then. How is this different? What should people in your position as leaders of universities be doing? Or does it have to vary from campus to campus and from circumstance to circumstance?
I think there's a lot of variation among American college campuses, and people do cite, maybe a handful or two handfuls of campuses out of the many hundreds where there are protests, that cite them as where the protests got out of control. UCLA, Chicago to some extent, Columbia and Harvard, and a few other places. And I don't want to minimize it. Those places, if you were a Jewish student and part of the campus was off limits to you, I think that's wrong, and that college and university administrators should put a stop to that. There are trade-offs to doing that, and there are definitely practical considerations how you do it, how much force do you use, and I think each campus is a little different. Wesleyan is a pretty small place, so we have 3,200 students. So when our encampment went up, certainly the people felt they had a lot of fervor for the cause, the pro-Palestinian cause, and they were angry at me because I've been on record against boycott and divestment of Israel for many years. And though I've been critical of the Netanyahu government, especially in regard to this war, I've also been clear that I think Israel has every right to defend itself.
Hi, I'm Janice, and I am co-founder of Jews United for Democracy and Justice, as well as the America at a Crossroads weekly virtual town hall series. If you like this video, don't just watch. Head over to our website where you can subscribe for early access to new programs, see our upcoming schedules, and participate in our weekly live streams. You can also connect directly with our guests live on Zoom. Head over to JewsUnitedForDemocracy.org. Thanks for watching.
The students were certainly angry at me, and the playbook for protesters, and there is such a thing, actually, I have one, is to choose somebody in administration and demonize them. Don't, because if you say the administrators are terrible, it's not very exciting. If you say Michael Roth's a murderer, that's exciting.
There
And
really
so
is a playbook?
there is a playbook. Yes, I found out from another college president. She sent it to me, and it was circulated among these campuses, and it makes sense. I mean, I was a protester as a student myself, and you hear from other people what makes something more or less effective. At Wesleyan, the protesters actually were what they did was to bear witness to what they thought was a moral outrage. They thought of as genocide, and there was probably the same percentage of Jews among those living in the encampment as there were in the campus as a whole. Uh, and the encampment was porous. In other words, I met the rabbi in the encampment. I would meet the imam in the encampment. My wife and I, she teaches at Wesleyan, we'd walk our dog through the encampment every morning. And that was very important to me, that it was a place where people could have their slogans and have their meetings, but it wasn't off limits to any other group on campus. Now, if you were a pro-Israel a student on campus, you would feel beleaguered by those sayings, the chants, and so on. I understood that. I actually reached out to students many times to talk to them about how they felt in that regard. But I also thought that those slogans and statements were protected speech. They were political. They weren't saying, Roth, you Jew, you will die. They were saying, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free. Now, I don't like that slogan, but the fact that I don't like it doesn't mean it's off limits for people to chant. Someone pointed out to me that a student chanted that one of our trustees' name and said, Smitty, that's not the name, but I'm use a false name. Smitty, how many babies did you kill today?
They used that on LBJ in the 60s.
Exactly. I thought it was anti-Semitic blood libel. And then one of my friends said, I was at a friend's house and his kid said, hey, Dad, that's what you guys used to chant in the 60s. And then they chanted it for Condi Rice. It's evergreen. So, I think that it's really important that people feel safe to express their religious observance, their identities. And I think they did at Wesleyan. They weren't, it wasn't clear that was happening at Columbia or Harvard, that there were many Jews who felt unsafe because of their identity on campus. That should not be allowed to happen. How you prevent it is complicated, I'm sure, especially at a larger campus. At a small place like Wesleyan, everybody knows me, or knows me a little, and my team knows most of the protesters. And so you could actually negotiate in ways that allowed their voices to be heard, but did not give in to demands what we thought were inappropriate. And so I think around the country, I'm on a panel with some presidents soon, and one president said, my campus, it's a panel for free speech. It's about how we all love free speech. And this president said, my campus, there were no protests. And I said, well, that's a funny way to say you have a lot of free speech. I mean, in the beginning of this school year, I wrote a piece in the Times that said, I want my students to be more political. Now, what I meant by that was I wanted them to go work for political campaigns, and I made that clear. But I didn't want them to be just studying or going to a basketball game or smoking dope. I wanted them to actually be engaging with the issues of the day. And the issues of the day include the war in Gaza. And so even though I may disagree with the position of many students, that really isn't here nor there. As long as they stay within the time and place restrictions we have and they're nonviolent, then I think my job is to protect them and their right to voice their opinions.
Next Wednesday at America at a Crossroads, we're going to be welcoming NYU constitutional law professor and author Rachel Barkow, who's going to be in conversation with Warren Olney. She has a new book addressing the question asked by many of you on this program, and a vital one. This isn't an abstract or an academic question any longer. What happens when the Supreme Court, the Constitution, and the rule of law are ignored? That's going to be next Wednesday. We hope you'll be able to join us for that.